Hello, as we continue in our series in 1 Samuel about asking the question, who is leading our lives? I want to start with a question for you. Have you ever faced consequences for not following directions? If you've ever put like IKEA furniture together, for example, like you didn't follow the directions, you just jumped right in, all the parts all over the place, you were going to put them together, you were just going for it, and then you realize at the end it's like, oops, maybe made a mistake. Maybe it was in the directions that somebody gave you to get someone's house. Yeah, I know you didn't follow your phone. You were just like, I don't need it. I know how to get there. Or maybe it was directions on how to respond in a certain situation. Like somebody said, hey, if someone comes and says this is how you should respond. And you're at work and somebody came up that way and you didn't respond. And then all of a sudden, oh, wow, there's a mess. I hope all of us could relate to a moment where it feels like we got busted. Like we realized, oh, I didn't follow directions and this went wrong. And I don't want to dwell on this for shame or guilt, but I do want us to reflect a little bit, like that feeling of like when we realize there's a consequence to not following directions. So what does this have to do with answering the question, who is leading us? Well, let's discover this together, and let's get back to 1 Samuel 9, chapters 9 through 15. We're only going to focus on 15, but in case you haven't went back and read through this so far, here's what's happened. We just got out last week. We talked about how the people said, hey, Samuel, we want a king. And Samuel went to God, and God said, okay, but tell him this is what it's going to cost him. And they said, no problem, we're in for it. The king can take over our lives. So that's what happened. Samuel anointed Saul. Saul became king, and very soon and very quickly, it was some messy stuff, but very quickly, Saul became that king who did exactly what God said would happen. God took their sons and put them in the army. God took their daughters to serve him and to serve the people. A lot of things like that happened. Also, what happened is Saul followed God, and there were some really good things happening. And then as the good things kept happening, God went to Samuel to tell Saul, hey, go and attack the Amalekites, because these are your bullies, these are your main people that you just get frustrated with. I am going to give you them. They are going to be done. You're going to be able to conquer them. It's going to be great. But here's the thing. Here's what I need you to do. I need you to kill everything. I need you to kill all of the people. When I give you favor and you're able to attack and kill them, you need to kill everybody, and you need to kill all the animals, and you can't take anything with you. You can't take anything with you back. You have to burn it all, destroy it all. So, Saul demonstrated something that many of us struggle with. Many of us want to follow God. And we do follow God to a point. See, what happened is Saul went and attacked. King Saul went and attacked the Amalekites, and he got favor, and he conquered everything, and he destroyed everything. And then he captured the king of the Amalekites, and he didn't kill him. He told his people, his soldiers, hey, keep the best of what you find. And so after all of that happened, God went to Samuel and said, hey, tell this to Saul. So it's chapter 15, verse 22. Samuel asked Saul, hey, did you do what God had said? He said, absolutely. And he goes, I carried out the mission, and he gave me, I brought back King Agag, but I destroyed everything else. Then my troops brought the best of the sheep, goats, cattle, and plunder to sacrifice to your Lord your God in Gilgal. But Samuel replied, what is more pleasing to the Lord, your burnt offerings or sacrifice? Submission is better than offering the fat of rams. Rebellion is as sinful as witchcraft, and stubbornness as bad as worshiping idols. So because you have rejected the command of the Lord, he has rejected you as king. Pretty harsh words. Really harsh words from my perspective. Because if you look at it, didn't Saul do like, yeah, well, I just captured the king. I kept the king alive, and I captured all of the good stuff so we could offer it as a sacrifice to the good of God. Like we could just offer it to him because we want to give the best to God. And God said, no, you didn't listen. You broke my commands. And because of that, there's consequences. See, I don't know about you, but sometimes when I rationalize about following God, I think, oh, if I do 90%, I'm good. Like if I'm mostly following God, it's okay. Honestly, 51%. If I'm 51% of me is following God, I'm good. And that's not what God says. So when we're asking who is leading our life, and a lot of us, again, will say, yeah, God's leading my life, or I want God to lead my life. God wants to remind us of what is required. God wants to invite us into a deeper relationship with him. I want to invite you to really look at the heart of God, not because he wants to control, but because he wants to protect. He knows the best for us. So when he says he wants full devotion of us, it's not because he wants these mindless servants. He wants us to be free from distraction, free from temptation. Luke 9:23 says this, when Jesus, at the a crowd that was around Jesus, asked him, like, God, Jesus, what should we do? And he said, if any of you wants to be my follower, you must give up your own way, take up your cross daily, and follow me. You must give up your own way. I don't know about you, but that is hard. When I think about following Jesus, when I think like who am I allowing to lead my life? I'm first hand up God, man. I want God to lead my life. But then when I see what's required for God to lead my life, I realize that I fall short, and I need to have some time to reflect. So as you walk through this week, I invite you to think, where have you been following God? And where have you faced maybe some consequences of not following God fully? What parts have kind of been a struggle for you to fully give? Where have you started to get resentment because you don't believe God showed up the way he should have showed up because you did what you did? See, we can learn from Saul's life. Saul was a good guy. Saul did some really good things. In fact, his motives for keeping the king alive and bringing back the best were maybe pretty good motives, but it wasn't what God had commanded. It wasn't what God had said for him to do. And because of that, he faced consequences. So when we think about who's leading our life, we can't put it through our filter. We have to always go back to God and say, God, what does you leading my life look like? And then following him. So here's a couple of questions, and I know these are difficult, and these are like deep. I mean, these are like digging deep. If you want to dig deeper into what it means to follow God, by the way, these are the parts, if you read the story about people following Jesus, where people just tapped out and said, I can't follow you anymore. Like, if that's what it requires, I'm not sure I'm comfortable with this. But here's some questions maybe for you to reflect on as you think about who's leading your life and how are you really allowing God to lead your life. So question number one is, where in my life am I following God and my own preferences? Like, the God and. Like, I want the best of God, but I also want my thing. Like, I want this, and God, I feel like God would want me to do this, but I also need it to look like this. Maybe that's a job, maybe that's a relationship, maybe that's a comfort level, something in your life. Just where in your life are you following God and your own preference? Number two, where am I doing good for God versus being motivated by simply obeying God? Again, let me repeat that. Where am I doing good for God versus being simply motivated to obey God? Not good intentions, but where are you simply just obeying God because that's what he says? And last question is, what can I change in my life? What is one change I can make in my life to become more fully committed to letting God lead my life? God, guys, this is tough. This is difficult. This is deep. This is so good. There's a ton of good in it. But if we really want to let God lead our lives, we really want to dive deeper into this. Because when we don't follow what God has asked us to do, there are consequences. When we don't follow the directions he's given us, we can have consequences. And it's not his fault. He's told us, if you follow me, this is what you can expect. If you don't follow me, this is also what you can expect. Have fun wrestling. This is a great stuff. Wrestle around with this. Really seek reflection, and I can't see what fruit God's going to bring out of this.